Welcome to the show, Anna.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to the show. And it's really, I feel blessed to be here and share some of my knowledge to improve maybe someone's life.
Yeah, you're an interior designer, and I know you're passionate about well-being, which was really good to hear because I'm also passionate about well-being. And I'm really interested in how we can do things in our homes to improve our well-being. And they're not big things, they're like simple things that we can do. So I'm quite looking forward to finding out more.
Yes, I think there is many elements that actually contributes to well-being. And we spend so much time now indoors. It's estimated that it's about 90 to 92%. So it's 22 hours a day we are at home or at work. And so I think it's very important to be surrounded by a comfortable space that will provide the well-being.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things about being at home and not spending so much time outdoors, I think one thing that you're going to be touching on is the idea of light.
Yes. Light will be one of that, but I thought that I will start with empty space, and to create empty space, it's basically decluttering.
Yeah.
So cleaning up the, anything that we collected over the years, probably, and we are attached emotionally. But we don't really need, and the growing consumerism and everything is so affordable now as well. It all contributes to us having more and more things, and it's very difficult to clean it up afterwards. I'm sure everyone experienced that. And so I think it's important also to answer the question, why do we need to declutter? From the scientific research, I would say. So mess, it has been shown that mess increases cortisol, which is a stress hormone level. And, we can have headaches and anxiety, increased blood pressure and other issues. So it's worth decluttering just to feel calmer in the space and to feel in control and essentially control of surroundings and our life.
Yeah.
And besides, decluttering improves also focus and productivity. So by simply organizing the space, we can just work better and feel better.
Yeah. Have you found studies which talk about your mental well-being, and linked with cluttering or decluttering rather?
Yes, so as I mentioned, that mess increases cortisol. So when the high level of cortisol is present in our body, we've got anxiety, for example, so and other mental conditions.
Yeah.
So I can just provide few practical steps how to declutter the space if we do feel overwhelmed and we don't know where to start.
Yeah.
So one of the approaches is just take it room by room, space by space, and you're setting a timeline and just a little goals, and then going through one space at each time.
Yeah.
And it's very good to also involve the whole family, so everyone knows where things are, because there is no point of organizing space if just one person knows everything. And I found this very common, even at my home. Sometimes when I'm organizing, I just need to inform everyone. You can find this one here, and just
get the whole family involved.
Yes. Besides that, what I can advise is to just put things out of the sight, because less visual impact. There is less things we see when we can focus on what's important. And also when we have a lot of even beautiful collected decor, we can't really see it and appreciate it in the same way if we have one nice thing and it is present there and noticeable enough.
Yeah, yeah.
And the last point I want to maybe make is also that advice to use a smart storage solution. So just use spaces you don't really think that would be, you don't really think as, you know, as can be a storage. So even unused fireplace, for example, to use as a bookshelves, and just under stairs or under bath. There's so many little alcoves that are unused and can be turned into storage.
Okay, that's interesting. Especially under the bath.
Yes. And then yes, decluttering is basically giving us opportunity to create something new.
Yeah.
So have that empty space, empty room, and then start anew.
Yeah, yeah. And do you have any tips about how to sort of really make up your mind to actually what to get rid of? And because, you know, some people might just want to hang on to things, and there are things they'll think, oh, I don't know, should I keep this? They don't really want to let them go, and maybe they should. And, you know, do you have any tips there?
So one of the strategy you can use is empty the space into boxes, and then take one thing by one what you actually need. And if you're not using something, or if you just want to keep something, maybe keep a box of things that you are feeling attached to emotionally or for any reason. And you can keep it aside, you can keep it in the loft. But otherwise, just take out of the boxes the things you really need and you really want to see every day.
Okay.
And I think decluttering is also like ongoing process, because it is normal that we bring to our homes, all the time new things.
Yeah.
So it's not about doing it just once and we are done for good. It will be ongoing process. You must just go through that every now and then.
Yeah, I mean, I've been decluttering recently, and I found that things that maybe a couple of years ago when I decluttered, there's certain things I kept. And now I think, no, I really just get rid of them. Because sometimes I find you do a bit of decluttering, you keep certain things, and maybe a year later or something, you're decluttering again. And you look at those things that you kept from last time, but you never really looked at them during this whole year or 2 years, how long it's been since you last decluttered. And then you think, well, why did I keep this? I never looked at it. I kept this, it was kept away in this box. I even forgot about it. And why did I keep it? And if I keep it now, will I even look at it? Next time I have a decluttering session, maybe in a year or so, I'll just bring this box out or whatever, and I'll think, oh yeah, I kept this last time I decluttered, but I never looked at it. I even maybe forgot about some of the things, and why am I really keeping it? And there might be some emotional attachment at the time, but you think, even then, personally, I think, what's the point in keeping it if I actually forget about it while it's put away? And there have been things that I've only looked at every time I've started to declutter. And that's when I just think, oh yeah, this. And so now I've been throwing a lot more away in this session, because for me, I just feel, well, why am I keeping it just to be locked away that I even forget about? And I only see it every time I have a decluttering session.
Yes, I think maybe that's why, the concept of minimalism is so popular right now, because people just are feeling overwhelmed with the amount of things we've got, and it creates like mental clutter as well.
Yeah. I'm very much for minimalism nowadays.
Yes. So once we declutter the space, I think the starting point to create a good space for well-being would be the largest areas. So using appropriate materials to implement and bring, because materials also take the largest proportion in the space. So by materials, of course, I mean the composition of objects and just surface, for example. And in the biophilic approach to design, it's important to have natural materials which are connecting us to nature. However, it is more important to actually have more individual approach in terms of individual requirements of stimulation, because every of us is different, and some people prefer the low contrast in textures. Some people are more balanced, so we've got something, for example, rough and smooth. And then we've got those more dramatic people who like more variations. So we have to really consider personality of a person. And I think once we establish the preference, and if you can't establish, that's where interior designer, for example, is coming to help, because many people are struggling with actually knowing what they like. So we've got that ability to analyze somebody's personality and individual requirements and needs. And even sometimes you need to, go against trends and fashion, and just have more mindful approach.
You need to be you.
Yes. So those choices we have to make are very individual and depend on our personal needs. But nevertheless, as a human, we all need two things to feel balance and harmony, and that's symmetry and the repetition of the materials. And that might be combination of, for example, two materials that is repeating in the space, and that repetition is providing us feeling of comfort and safety, which contribute to well-being. So it's not only about aesthetics when we have, for example, when we pair up throw, which is one color or one texture, and then we've got additional cushion, which is complementing it. It's the feeling of repetition that is providing us the well-being and comfort. Yes. What maybe I can also touch on is a specific research which were conducted in 2006. And those interesting findings has shown that worn out surfaces, and I'm not saying about like vintage look or, that shabby fashion style, but worn out or dirty materials can lead to depression And those were research conducted in like schools, offices, and hospitals. So maybe we should be mindful about taking care of place as well, and materials we are surrounded by.
Yeah. And with the materials and things, I should think that maybe natural materials would be better than synthetic ones.
Yes, of course, because not on natural, but synthetic materials can have composition which can be harmful for our bodies, and we touch the surface and we breathe the air, and that can cause issues for some people with allergies or some sensitivities. So even when looking at the largest areas in the room, which are walls, it's very important to choose the right paint. And there is so many natural paints now on the market. So we really have a choice.
Yeah, which is really good. And also I read somewhere that with things like materials, and we're sort of talking about clothes, but even, like cushion covers, things like that you put in the washing machine to wash, if they're made of synthetics, then those particles are eventually ending up in the oceans, which is not very good.
Yes, I'm sure there is an environmental concern as well. Yes, so continuing with the paint, and the advice I can give is, first of all, to choose paint which is VOC free, as there are compounds which are very harmful for our bodies. And
what's VOC?
These volcanic organic compounds. It can cause headaches, for example, cardiovascular problems, or other health issues. And they are very harmful, especially for babies. So it's important to choose natural paints for nurseries.
Yeah.
And as I'm saying, there is so many choices and alternatives nowadays on the market. So when we look at the paint, we need to consider the paint which is VOC free, which is odorless and non-toxic, which is organic with natural pigments, preferably water-based. So those are the main features.
Okay, that's quite useful to know.
And interestingly, there are so many paints nowadays which are, for example, made of milk protein, of food protein, clay, bamboo, and cellulose. So there is just, so many alternatives.
Yeah.
Probably you could eat it without being harmed.
And I'm assuming that when you're looking for things like cushion covers, etc., and rugs and things, you should go for natural materials like cotton and bamboo and anything else we could look out for when we're buying cushion covers and throws and rugs for our homes.
Yes, so the best would be cotton and cotton blends and linen, something natural that feels natural for our skin.
Yeah.
And even the presence of wood texture in the space contributes as well to improved mental state and well-being.
Okay. So what would you recommend there? Like with the furniture, what would you say would be that the healthiest, bits of furniture to buy made out of?
As I'm saying, it's very individual. So I have, it's all about providing a comfort. And as I'm saying, comfort is so individual and depends on personality. So it wouldn't make sense to, for example, force someone to buy furniture made of wood and with wood grain, if somebody's preference is for shiny surfaces, and that's their need, basically.
Sure. I was just thinking that perhaps maybe try and buy things that are made out of wood as opposed to plastic, because I just thought that might be better. Would it not be?
As I'm saying, it's very individual. So comfort and well-being is about being in control of environment.
Right, yeah.
So I can't advise that, you know, one material would be better for everyone.
Okay.
In the same way.
Right. Okay.
Yes, and connecting the paint, of course, when speaking about the paint, what comes to mind is the color.
Yeah.
And usually people ask the question, what's the best color for the space? But color is so complex element that there is no one answer to that question. And why color is important? That's the biggest question, I think. So we've got that biological aspect, and exploring the process of absorbing color, which is basically a wavelength. We visually absorb it, and it comes to our retina where it's converted into electrical impulse, and the electrical impulse is influencing our brain activity and hormones. So essentially, color influences and governs some parts of our brains, which are responsible, for example, for sleeping, for behavior, biological clock, or nervous system. So in that way, color influences our body, essentially. And once the body is influenced, our mind is influenced as well. So we've got that psychological aspect, which is affecting our emotions and feelings. And just briefly touching on few colors and some basic colors. Red, for example, is very active. So it brings about very active and strong feelings. Green is more moderate and calming. And then we've got the spectrum of cool colors, which is essentially blue, for example. And it's very quiet and cold. It gives the passive emotions. So based on those informations, we can look on ways how the color can support our well-being.
Right.
And the first tip I can provide is that we need to think about what activity serve in the space, what takes in the space the primary activity, and according to that we can choose the best color. So, for example, the red, which is active, and it rises pressure, for example, blood pressure, would promote focus and attention. So having something red, for example, in the office can be very beneficial for focused work. Then we've got yellow, which evokes optimism and self-confidence. So it's a good color to use in place where we have conversations and social activities. But at the same time, yellow can cause anxiety in big amount. So we're coming back to that balance and harmony, which can be brought with, for example, if we use combination of gray with yellow. And then we've got blue, which is supporting creativity and calm state, mindfulness. And the last color is green, which is the most restful color for the eye, and we can see it in nature. It's just color we are not really reacting to.
Yeah. So would that be good for places where you relax, even the bedroom?
Yes, for bedroom, or basically it's calming down. So you may notice it's very often used in hospitals or at dentist offices, in those places.
Yeah.
And when we consider color, we need to take very similar approach as when we discussed materials, that it's very individual.
Yeah.
So one color won't be the best for everyone.
Yeah.
And
sure.
there have been some research explained by Angela Wright, who defined 4 personality types, which is connected to psychology of color. And if anyone wants to find out more, you can just contact me and get in touch to have some more specific informations. But those research provide guide how to identify own profile, psychological profile of color, and use color to create comfort in the space.
That's quite interesting. Is she a psychologist?
No, she is interior designer and a researcher of color. Basically, she was researching color. And besides all that, I think we need to look inspiration for color in nature. Yeah, because it was all created for us to be there. Yeah, and we are disattached now. So it's very important to look into nature and bring color that are present there into interiors. Yeah, there's some amazing colors in nature. When you actually look at, if you watch these sort of nature programs, whether you watch gardening programs or even like animal programs or wildlife programs, sometimes you see these creatures with just amazing colors, and you don't realize that in nature these amazing colors exist. Like I saw this bird once in one of these programs, had this really deep turquoise color, and it was just such a striking blue color. And I just thought, wow, I've never actually seen that in nature before. I've seen it, I guess artificially. I've seen maybe paints or whatever in that color, and that was the first time I actually saw that color is actually on a bird, that it actually really does come from nature. Yes, I think the best color combinations are found in nature. Sometimes, like if you wonder, for example, what this color would be the best to combine with, just look at nature and how the nature is combining colors. Yeah. And maybe quite essential is also to notice how colors are changing in seasons. And we've got that spring, which is fresh and bright, and then summer, which is warm and soft. And all that elements in changing seasons we can bring into our homes as well. Yeah. Yes. But probably color would not exist without light. Yeah. So moving on to aspects of light. Light and color are believed to be the same thing, because they are essentially both lengths of energy that we can perceive. And when we speak about light and the influence on our bodies and minds, we have to understand that light regulates production of hormones, and it's influencing our feelings, an emotional feeling of comfort and safety as well.
Yeah.
And of course, we have to distinguish between the daylight and artificial light, and point out how deficient in daylight we are nowadays, spending so much time indoors.
Yeah. And as we come up to winter, we'll probably spend even more time indoors, and there's going to be less time of light anyway.
Yes, exactly. The days are so short during the winter. And of course, there are different techniques techniques and technology that is actually trying to replace daylight.
Yeah.
As in my brief that I've sent you, I touched on SAD condition, which is SAD, seasonal affective disorder, and this is a condition which is developed during winter months because of lack of daylight. And the symptoms are very similar to depression. So it's like lack of energy and low mood and sleepiness. And we can find that in one of the therapies. Of course, you have to consult your doctor and so on. But one of the therapies that exists is the light therapy. And they are SAD lamps, which produce efficient amount of lux to stimulate daylight.
Yeah.
And basically the therapy is based on a session of 20 minutes sitting under the lamp to improve your mood.
And how can we make the best of our space to sort of make the best of light?
Yes, so there are several techniques how to optimize the daylight in our space. And it depends if we, for example, planning any structural work in our space, or we renovating and we have the opportunity to, just do some demolition of walls and have a new, bigger windows. That would be the best and ideal scenario. And just few like strategies when you are planning structural work. So what you can consider is to bring, for example, sun tubes from the roof down to the space. You can use high reflective shelves, roof lights, or large windows, or if you can build conservatory, that would give you opportunity to be exposed to daylight.
Yeah, and anything sort of it's on a smaller scale.
Yes, if we have existing space and we can't make any big changes, then first of all, we have to look at color, choose the best color that will just support the space.
Yeah.
Then we can use mirrors to provide the equal distribution of light within the space, or choose some reflective surfaces.
Yeah.
And I think quite essential would be also to, because having just one source of daylight, which is, for example, south, east, or west, it can disturb the perception of light. So the ideal scenario will be to have different directions.
Yeah. Because of course, light's really important for our sort of natural body clocks, our circadian rhythm.
Yes, because it the daylight is responsible for regulating circadian rhythm.
Yeah.
So it's all to do with, from our sleep, mood, body temperature, metabolism. It's all connected.
Yeah.
And of course, any dysregulation are just generating dysfunction in our system.
Yeah.
But yes, so one of the source of light, which is daylight, is the most beneficial for us. But if we can't bring the daylight into the space, then we have to use and optimize strategies and tools to use the artificial light to replace the daylight.
Yeah, yeah. Although too much artificial light isn't really good for your well-being.
Yes, of course. As I mentioned before, it applies to light as well, that it's very important to have the access to control. And control is one of the elements that promotes well-being. So in the same way, we should be able to control the light in the space, and having different sources which give you different artificial light.
Yeah.
So the cool light would be used during the day because it keeps us awake. So it helps us, learning and focus and do our work. But then in the evening, we just want to calm down and relax. So if we have, for example, dimmers, or if we have bulbs that are dimmable, that's the perfect scenario.
Yeah, that's great.
And another thing we can implement as well, for example, in our bedrooms, is to use lamps with shades.
Yeah.
Which are just saturating the light.
Yeah.
So I hope that, those tips everyone can use and apply in the space will just support their well-being.
Yeah, thank you very much for giving your tips and your information about how we can just make changes inside our homes just to increase our well-being. And where can people find you? What's your website?
Yes, so if somebody wants some more information or just get in touch and say hello, you can contact me through my website, which is www.ania, it's ania-id.com.
Okay, and are you available on social media at all, Instagram?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram as well.
Okay,
and
we'll put I'll put all the links up on the show notes anyway. So thank you very much for coming on the show today.
Okay, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share everything.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Wellbeing in the Kingdom. If you've enjoyed, learned from, or been inspired or empowered by today's episode, then please help to support the show by leaving a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts.